had a long evaluation of Tamzid. They tried many ways to induce Tamzid to talk, but unfortunately everything failed, and the doctors came to a conclusion that Tamzid might be autistic.
When they told us that Tamzid may have autism, we were stunned.
অটিজম কি এটাই তো আমরা জানতাম, এই দেশের লোকেরই তো এই জিনিসটা। আমরা একটা জিনিস জানতাম যে বাচ্চা অনেক সময় রিটার্ডেড জন্ম হয়, মেন্টালি রিটার্ডেডও হতে পারে। অটিজমটা সম্বন্ধে তো আমাদের কোনো ধারণাই ছিল না।
When we heard about Tamzid being autistic, my mom was very worried about me and my married life. She started crying endlessly. She said, "What will happen to your life? Like, maybe my in-laws will be blaming me for this autistic kid, or my married life may be jeopardized." Even she said, "Don't tell it to anyone." I don't know what to do at that point.
সেটা যদি বলেন যে আমরা কিসের ভিতর দিয়ে আসছি, সেটা পিছনে আর যাওয়ার মতো আমাদের আর সাধ্য নেই। আমি গর্ব করি আমার মেয়েকে নিয়ে যে সে এই অবস্থা কাটিয়ে ভয়াবহ। এখন তো অভ্যাসই হয়ে গেছে, মোটামুটি খাপ খেয়ে গেছি ওর সঙ্গে। খুব কষ্ট হয়েছে ওর সময়টা।
I got a scholarship at New York University, and I took it right away because I knew for sure that Tamzid will get advanced treatment in New York. And at that time, I was thinking about nothing at all in this world except Tamzid, and that made the decision for me to come. I had a neighbor just next door. She used to come to my house almost every day. She saw Tamzid and never suggested anything. When I was planning to come to New York, like everything was settled, everything has been planned out, one day she just mentioned that she has a brother. And I was surprised. I never saw her brother. So I asked her, "What happened?" She just mentioned that he's abnormal, so they keep him in a room. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of kids around in Bangladesh who never see the sunlight. Their relatives keep them hidden so that nobody knows, and they are never exposed to any kind of treatment or teachings. I left Bangladesh at the end of July 2000 and came to New York. When I come to New York, I had only one relative, that is my sister-in-law. I remember those days when Tamzid was only 1.5 years old. He was very restless during the night, and he had sleep disorder. We had 3 bedrooms. So when he's done with my room, he would come out and then he would try to go to other bedrooms. If the door is closed, he would go to the door and he would try to knock in the door if it is not open. And if it is open, then he would push the door and get inside. He would play around the room. He would come out of the room and then he would go to the next room. And he would make some noise. And my sister-in-law, she goes to work very early in the morning, and that's how he would play around the whole night. And I tried to be with him so that he is not too much of a disturbance to others. Day after day he would do it like that. The very next day we went to the pediatrician at Long Island Jewish Hospital, and the doctor gave us a long appointments for doing all kinds of evaluation for Tamsid.
In the typical brain, when information comes in, goes through the processing center and is then sent out, sometimes information needs to be shared with other centers of the brain as well before it then comes out and goes into an action or a performance of a behavior. In the autistic brain, because of this lack of symmetry and the inability to be processed, two things happen. One, it doesn't go to the other centers of the brain in order to help in the processing. And two, it kind of like gets lost. It just keeps going around and never gets processed. And that contributes to the ongoing frustration of the child because they are smart enough to know that nothing is being done.
He did not like loud noises. That was another issue. In the school we're at, there's it's just not us in a cafeteria. There were another 100 kids in the cafeteria, and the noise level is very high. And I remember we used to go into the cafeteria, and he used to scream and cry. He didn't want to stay there.
One day we were watching a movie in the TV, me and Fahim, and there were some fighting scene. People were screaming and yelling at each other. All of a sudden, I heard a scream, and when I looked at Tamzid, he was starting banging his head in the wall. And it was so difficult. We tried to calm him down, but he was so unmanageable. He kept crying and crying.
This problem exists in the frontal lobe, in the parietal lobe, the sensory lobe, occipital, temporal, and cerebellar lobes. So it's a global issue with regard to the brain. So processing of information is not happening. It's not typical mental retardation. The child understands something's broken. The child understands his brain's not working. That's when they get confused. That's when they get very angry and they try and get their brain to work by banging their head.
After everything is done, then the specialist let us know that Tamzid may have some autistic trends and he needs early intervention. This is personal touch, where Tamzid first came for early intervention. When a child is diagnosed with autism, if we can bring them at their tender age for early intervention, there are chances of better performance.
Hi, welcome. How are you?
I'm fine.
How you been? Welcome to Personal Touch again.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, honey. Hi. Say hi. Good job, buddy. Good job. Nice smiling, huh? Come on. Let's take a little walk. We're going to go inside. How are you? Good?
Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. Nice walking, buddy, with mommy. Remember the old hallways?
Yeah, I never forget this.
How many years now? 4 years? Oh, that's cool. Nice walking. And this is our ABA classroom where our children are receiving one-to-one intervention based in applied behavior analysis, and this is our head teacher, Dina Huertas. I personally feel that applied behavior analysis is the best method for children on the autism spectrum, and the Department of Health recommend applied behavior analysis as the only method of intervention, the primary intervention for children with autism.
This is the ABA classroom. In this classroom, we have 2 sessions. They go for 2.5 hours at a time. In this classroom, we have a 1-to-1 ratio, which means for every child, they have their own individual teacher. You could see if you look around the classroom that the structure of the classroom is set up so that each student is sitting directly with the teacher.
Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. Good morning to Mark, and how do you do? Mark came to school, Mark came to school. Hi-ho, the cherry-o, Mark came to school.
Discrete trial, what it basically means is that we're taking larger tasks and we're breaking them down into smaller parts that are more manageable for the children. In that way, the children are able to eventually work back up to completing the task fully with less frustration and more success.
Hurry, hurry, drive that fire truck. Hurry, hurry, drive that fire truck. Hurry, hurry, drive that fire truck. Good!
Even though you have all of this disorganization going on, the child with autism can in fact learn. The child with autism can acquire social skills, eye contact, language, fine motor, gross motor, and activities of daily living skills sufficient enough to get along with their peers and go to school. And we even have children going to college and getting very good jobs. The trick is to get the child to calm down enough in order to then figure out how to process, in order to do therapy with the therapist, to do therapy on themselves so that they can then acquire the skills necessary.
The brushing is a form of deep pressure massage that is particularly used for David. He's sensitive to certain textures. He especially doesn't like getting his hands messy with soft textures. And his mother told me that he doesn't like when his sleeves are too long. He has to immediately get them off his hands. When his pants are too long, it annoys his feet. So this is just one type of massage that one type of treatment that we're using towards desensitizing David.
Tamzid was very sensitive. Nobody could touch him. Like if anybody would touch him, he would scream. At that time, it was so difficult to handle him, and nobody could handle him properly. Even me, I was scared.
What you're doing is actually putting pressure on your muscles, like for example, anything that has resistance to it or pressure. You're having the muscles feel where they are in space, so if you're providing a deep pressure